The first time my husband looked at me like he was afraid, I was standing in the hallway holding a folder with my own name on it. Not his name. Mine. The folder had been hidden inside a locked drawer in his study, and I had only found it because I was looking for the paperwork for our marriage settlement. I remember thinking, why would a billionaire need a secret file about me? Then I saw the photograph on top. It was a picture of a little girl standing beside a woman I had spent 28 years believing was a stranger. Except she wasn't a stranger. She was my mother. And the little girl was me. I closed the folder immediately. But by then, I already knew my marriage hadn't started the way I'd thought it had. 3 months earlier, I had agreed to marry a man I didn't love. His name was Adrian Vale. He was 42, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country, and the owner of a chain of luxury hotels, private hospitals, and property companies. I was 28 and working 2 jobs. My mother had died when I was 19, leaving me with a small apartment, a pile of unpaid bills, and no family I could depend on. I wasn't poor in the dramatic way people imagine. I had food. I had a roof. I had a used car that made strange noises whenever I turned left. But there was never anything left at the end of the month. Then my younger brother Daniel got into serious financial trouble. He'd borrowed money from the wrong people, and when he couldn't pay it back, they started threatening him. I tried everything. Loans. Friends. Extra shifts. Nothing was enough. That's when Adrian approached me. It happened after an event at one of his hotels where I was working temporary catering staff. He waited until everyone else had left. "You're Emma Carter, right?" I nodded. "You have a brother named Daniel." My stomach tightened. "Yes. I can make his debt disappear." I stared at him. "What do you want?" He didn't smile. "I want you to marry me." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I thought he had to be joking. He wasn't. His proposal was brutally simple. A legal marriage for 1 year. He would pay Daniel's debts, give me enough money to clear my mother's remaining medical bills, and provide me with financial security. In return, I would appear beside him publicly as his wife. No romance? I asked. No expectations. And after a year, we go our separate ways. I should have walked away. Instead, I signed. At the time, I told myself I was doing it for Daniel. Maybe that was partly true. But if I'm being honest, I also wanted to know what it felt like to stop worrying about money. The wedding was small. Too small for a billionaire. There were no crowds of celebrities, no magazine photographers, no extravagant ballroom. Just a private ceremony at a courthouse, followed by dinner at Adrian's home. His mansion was enormous, but strangely quiet. That was the first thing I noticed. There were rooms everywhere, but almost no photographs. No family portraits. No childhood pictures. Nothing personal. It felt less like someone's home and more like a place someone had carefully designed so nobody could learn anything about him. For the first few weeks, Adrian was exactly what I'd expected. Polite. Distant. Generous. He never demanded affection. He never questioned where I went. He gave me a separate bedroom and treated our marriage like a business arrangement. But then little things started happening. One morning, I found a cup of coffee waiting for me. Exactly how my mother used to make it. 2 teaspoons of sugar. A small amount of cream. I asked the housekeeper who had made it. She looked confused. Mr. Vale. That bothered me. I'd never told Adrian how I took my coffee. Another time, I came downstairs wearing an old silver bracelet that had belonged to my mother. Adrian saw it and went completely still. Where did you get that? My mother. He looked at the bracelet for several seconds. Then he said quietly, I remember it. I thought I had misunderstood. What? He shook his head. Nothing. But after that, he became different. More watchful. More protective. He started asking questions about my childhood. Where I grew up. Which hospital I was born in. Who had raised me. What I remembered about my mother. I began to wonder if he'd investigated me before proposing. Then one evening, I found an envelope underneath my bedroom door. There was no name on it. Inside was a single photograph. It showed my mother standing beside a much younger Adrian. I stared at it for a long time. My mother had always told me she had worked as a nurse before I was born. She had never mentioned Adrian. I went straight to his study. He was sitting behind his desk. I placed the photograph in front of him. Why are you in this? He looked at it. Then at me. Where did you get that? Answer me. He leaned back slowly. You weren't supposed to see that. That sentence scared me more than the photograph. Why? He didn't answer. Did you know my mother? Yes. How? He looked away. She worked for my family. That isn't what I asked. Silence. Then he said, she saved my life. I didn't know what to say. He explained that when he was 21, his father had been killed in an attempted kidnapping. Adrian had been injured and hidden in a private clinic under a false name. My mother had been one of the nurses caring for him. According to him, she had protected him when someone inside the family was trying to find him. But there was more. Something he still wasn't telling me. A few days later, I discovered the folder. The one with my name. The one containing the photograph of my childhood. There were medical records. Old letters. A copy of my birth certificate. And one document that made my hands shake. It was a DNA test. I read the result twice. Then a third time. The test showed a biological relationship between Adrian and me. Not the kind I expected. He wasn't my father. He was my half-brother. I couldn't breathe. I walked downstairs with the folder in my hands. Adrian was in the living room. He saw my face and immediately stood. You found it. You knew. He didn't deny it. How long? 6 months. And you married me anyway? His expression broke. I didn't marry you because of the money. Then why? He stepped toward me. I stepped back. Don't. He stopped. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he finally told me the truth. My mother had once been engaged to Adrian's father. Before Adrian was born. His father had abandoned her when he discovered she was pregnant with another man's child. Years later, Adrian discovered documents suggesting that his father had another daughter. A daughter who had been born shortly before his father's death. He spent years searching. Eventually, he found my name. But there was a problem. My mother had deliberately hidden me. She believed Adrian's father's family would never accept me. And she had been right. Adrian had found an old photograph of me as a child and recognized the bracelet I wore. He hired investigators. They eventually confirmed that I was his half-sister. I stared at him. So you knew I was your sister before you proposed? Yes. Then why did you ask me to marry you? His eyes filled with tears. That was the first time I'd ever seen him cry. Because I didn't know how to tell you. I almost laughed. You thought marrying me was easier? No. His voice cracked. I thought if I approached you as your brother, you'd disappear. I said nothing. He continued. I'd already lost my father. I'd spent years believing I had no family. Then suddenly I found you. He looked down at the floor. You were struggling. Daniel was in trouble. And I was terrified that if I told you who I was, you'd think I was trying to buy your love. So you bought my marriage instead? I know how terrible that sounds. It sounds insane. I know. He swallowed. But I needed time. I couldn't forgive him. Not immediately. Maybe not even for a long time. But there was one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. If he really wanted control, he could have simply given me money. He didn't have to marry me. He could have revealed the truth. Instead, he'd created the strangest possible arrangement because he was afraid I'd reject him. The next morning, Adrian gave me a box. Inside were letters my mother had written years earlier. She had known Adrian existed. She had followed his life from a distance. And in the final letter, she had written about me. She said she hoped one day I would meet him. Not because of his money. Because I deserved to know that I had family. I cried after reading that. Not because everything suddenly became okay. It didn't. I was still angry. Still confused. Still hurt that Adrian had lied to me. But for the first time, I understood why my mother had kept so many secrets. She hadn't been protecting herself. She'd been protecting me. Adrian didn't ask me to stay. He transferred everything he'd promised into an account in my name and told me I was free to leave. So I did. For 3 months, we lived apart. I went back to my old apartment. I got a normal job. Daniel started paying back what he could. And Adrian didn't interfere. He called exactly once. He asked if I was okay. I said yes. Then we hung up. A week later, I called him. I don't even know why. Maybe because I'd realized something. I hadn't fallen in love with a billionaire. I hadn't even really married one. I'd married a lonely man who had spent years searching for the only family he believed he had left. We started rebuilding our relationship slowly. Not as husband and wife. As brother and sister. It was awkward at first. There were silences. Arguments. Questions neither of us knew how to answer. But eventually, there were normal things too. Coffee. Family dinners. Birthday calls. Daniel making jokes about Adrian being the world's most intimidating brother. And sometimes, when we're all together, I catch Adrian looking at me with the same expression he had the day I found that folder. Not fear anymore. Relief. People still ask me why I married a billionaire. The truth is, I married him because I needed money. That part is true. And for a long time, I hated myself for it. But eventually I understood something. Money was the reason I said yes. It was never the reason he chose me. He chose me because I was the family he'd spent years believing he'd never find. And strangely enough, the marriage that began as the biggest financial decision of my life ended up giving me something money never could. A family. A brother. And the answer